Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. Orwatt Jr.
Welcome to episode number 114 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwatt Jr., and it is January 23rd, 2025. For this feature, I have guitarist Dario Lorina of the metal band Black Label Society as my special guest. From very early on, Dario has had a very impressive career. At the age of 16, Dario was recruited by ex-Warrant vocalist Jani Lane in 2006 to be his lead guitarist. In 2009, Dario joined shock rocker Lizzy Borden's band and remained there for 4 years. In 2014, Dario teamed up with metal guitar legend Zakk Wylde and Black Label Society and has been with the band ever since. In 2024, Dario launched Dark Chapel, which will be releasing their debut album on February 28th. During this interview, Dario discusses Dark Chapel, Black Label Society, and in addition talks about his future and past history. So here he is, guitar superstar Dario Lorina. Hey everyone, welcome to the Rock Interview Series, and we have a great special today. We have Dario Lorina with us of the band Black Label Society, and also with a new band called Dark Chapel, which will be releasing their debut record in February 28th, called Spirit in the Glass. You've already released a couple of singles from this, and I'll tell you, Dario, this is one hell of a record. You must be pretty proud about it.
Yeah, man, I'm psyched. Thank you for having me here. February 28th. I'm psyched for everybody to hear the whole album coming out.
I've been fortunate enough where I have heard the entire record, and let me tell you, it is really amazing. You released 2 singles already, the most recent one being Hollow Smile, which came out. Awesome video, great song, and Glass Heart was the very first one. Why did you release those first 2 songs as the first 2 singles? I mean, when I listened to the entire record, I mean, I don't know how you picked a single because they're all great.
I felt similar as far as having a hard time picking the first song. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to pick one and go with it, and we'll go from there. So that was Glass Heart for the first one, and then Hollow Smile. I was psyched to do the second one. Yeah, and those were actually 2 of the newest songs that I wrote for the album, because I wrote half the album a few years ago, and then completed the rest of the writing this past year. So those were actually 2 of the newest songs that I had finished writing.
From what I understand, the band was formed in 2024, so I mean, it's fairly a new band. Can you tell me about the process of forming the band and the other band members as well, and how they came on board?
Yeah, so I mean, I live in Vegas, so I found these guys in Vegas. Some of them were friends of mine that I had known, and like I was saying, I recorded some of the album a few years ago. So that was with a few other friends of mine, awesome musicians, and then I completed the lineup here in 2024 with Mike Gunn on bass and Louis Silver on drums. I have Dylan Dice playing guitar. So yeah, everybody's awesome.
I'm hoping that there's going to be some tour plans. Now, you know, everybody that's watching the interview knows you from Black Label Society, and you know, I would imagine that would be the number one priority. However, Zakk Wylde is doing a lot of other projects, like with Pantera. He also went out with Black Sabbath recently. So where does this fall in line as far as like bringing Dark Chapel out on the road? Do you have any definite plans yet?
Yeah, we're working on all that. Dark Chapel will definitely be touring. We just actually did 2 dates last week with opening for Black Sabbath on their King of the Monsters. We just did the last 2 shows of the tour. And yeah, we have a record release show in March at Vamped in Vegas, which we're psyched about, and we're working on a bunch from there. So yeah, we'll definitely be out on the road.
Are we looking at like headlining shows, or are you looking at opening slots right now, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, combination of both, but we'd love to do opening slots. That's what we're looking at.
Was there any talk about you doing more dates on the Black Sabbath tour? Because you know the other 2 members of Black Label Society were in Black Sabbath with them. So I mean, it would have made sense if you opened the entire tour. Was that ever talked about?
Yeah, schedule wise, this is what ended up working out perfect. So yeah.
Tell me about the writing process in the band. Was this something where you really are the mastermind of the band and you write all the music, or do the other members also have some input in the writing?
I mean, I'm writing a lot of it because I'm demoing it all out, and then then we bring it into rehearsal and kind of vibe it out as a band, and everybody puts on their flavor. But arrangement wise, I'm pretty much the songs arranged, guitar and vocal wise for the most part. and then the parts come to life as the guys put their feel in there.
Now, as far as the videos go, the Hollow Smile video, I really like the look of it. And you guys have a pretty cool image, a pretty dark image. Was there a lot of time spent like trying to create that cool image, or is that just you guys naturally?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's naturally kind of how we look, or that's what we would normally be like. Video wise, I mean, Justin Reich, who does a lot of the Black Label videos, actually all of them since I've been a part of the band, which has been about 11 years, been Justin, he's awesome. So he knocked that out of the park and made it look killer.
I definitely hear a kind of like a Alice in Chains vibe to some of the songs on here. Was Alice in Chains a influence musically to you?
Yeah, definitely. 100%. I mean, my heart's in like 70s, 80s guitar playing, but I was a kid in the 90s and I loved all that stuff, and that's really close to me. Listening to Boston radio stations, that was all over it. So yeah, I love all that.
If you go back to the beginning of your career, I remember hearing about you for the very first time when you were the guitarist in Jani Lane's band, and you were only 16 years old when you were with Jani Lane. You were still in high school. I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, I know. When I think back on it, at times it definitely seems crazy. I mean, I started playing guitar young, like 6, 7 years old, and it just, that guitar never left my hands. When I got into like middle school time, that's all I did, and it was all I thought about like doing. Like if somebody else was thinking, I'll be a football player or a doctor or a lawyer or whatever they wanted to be, I was just thinking I'm going to be a guitar player. So when I saw, like, MySpace was big at the time, so I saw like on the bulletin board that Jani was looking for a guitar player for his solo band. And being into all that music, guitar playing at the time, I just sent a bunch of emails to this contact that was in that post, and they got back to me. We ended up going back and forth, and they had me like record some Warrant songs, and I like panned my guitar one side and the Warrant song on the other side. I sent it off, and then they're like, yeah, why don't you come out to LA? I was living in Vegas at the time, so I went out there and Jani played drums. We just met at the rehearsal studio. He played drums and sang Warrant songs because phenomenal drummer. And that, we pretty much went from there. And yeah, I mean, those guys were all obviously much older than me. So they were definitely like my big brothers and definitely took me under their wing. And it was a wild and amazing experience. So yeah.
Yeah, what was your very first show like with Jani? I'm sure you had to be pretty nervous to go on stage for the first time like that.
I don't even know if I was nervous. I mean, I was young and wide-eyed, so I was just, so psyched. But I do remember the first show. I think it was at Mulcahy's, if I'm remembering correctly, which is on Long Island. And remember we had a long sound check, but we were rehearsing for a while, so yeah, it was just awesome.
Right. What was the biggest like eye-opening experience being like so young and being on the road with like, a rock music legend like that? What was the one thing that really kind of, surprised you to like witness firsthand?
I think the whole experience, just, lot of late nights, a lot of sleeping during the day. So, I mean, just the whole experience, really.
Mm-hmm. And then Jani, shortly after, I believe, like maybe in the next 2 years, rejoined with Warrant for a little while. So you were in his band. You were in his band when he decided to go back to Warrant, correct?
Yeah. Yep, that was the time frame. And I played with Jani for about 2 years. I was pretty much 16 to 18, maybe 19.
Yeah. Was that heartbreaking to hear that he was going back to Warrant? And
At the time for me, I mean, I was psyched for Jani because that was awesome. So, and I was working on things. So, yeah, it was cool to see that for Jani.
And then you transitioned from Jani Lane's band to Lizzy Borden, who's like a kind of like a Alice Cooper shock rock type artist and everything. How did you go about getting that gig? And probably at that point, I would think that there's probably a bit of a demand for your services because, I remember you being this like prodigy, like, teenage guitarist at the time. So how did you end up joining up with Lizzy Borden?
Yeah, so this was like right after the Jani, t when I was playing with Jani, and I had a publicist named Nancy Sale at the time, and we had a she knew Martin Anderson, who was playing bass in Lizzy Borden, and she had heard that they were looking for a guitar player, so she kind of connected us, and then yeah, I mean, Lizzy's awesome, guitar playing wise and awesome music. So I was psyched at that, and I went out to LA and jammed with those guys, and it was killer. And we were doing, I think the first show was like a few weeks later. We did Keep It True Festival in Germany, and yeah, I played with Lizzy for about 4 years or so.
Yeah, Lizzy Borden is a very theatrical rock band. Did you ever find that the actual like stage like antics or theatrics, I suppose, were like a bit distracting and hard to like, concentrate on what you were doing, or was it,
No, no, never distracting. But I remember like the very first show, I was looking over, kind of like as I'm playing, I'm watching the show at the same time, watching Lizzy do his thing. But no, it's awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that the guitar work, and the guitarists that he's had over the years from the very beginning have been great players, and some of the guitar work is very complicated guitar work.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, any one of those albums I was listening to or had to learn, all those guys were phenomenal, phenomenal players, and it was definitely a challenge, and it definitely made me grow just learning that. So yeah, cool stuff.
In a situation like that, like both with Jani Lane and Lizzy Borden, and even with Black Label Society, when you go about like covering songs that you didn't perform on, like on studio versions, do you try to replicate like as close as possible, like the solos, or do you kind of like keep the main parts that the parts that everybody knows and kind of like improvise yourself and add your own flavor to it or your own flair to it?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm learning that, that kind of stuff, I'm definitely trying to replicate as close as I can what was written on the album, because that's usually a crafted piece that is part of the song. I mean, I'm going to have my own feel and style to it that just comes as a natural thing from playing, but I'm definitely trying to get as close as I can. Yeah.
And then you released a couple solo records. What was that like? At that point, did you decide to, just concentrate on a solo career, or did you want to also join other bands? What was your mindset at that point?
Yeah, for like the Shrapnel records of the instrumental
Yeah.
albums, I was just, a lot of the guys I looked up to had albums on Shrapnel. So I had known Mike Varney for a few years, and it was something that was kind of getting talked about doing. And when the opportunity arose, I was psyched. So I wasn't really looking at it as a solo thing. I was just looking at it like a cool way to put out some guitar music and be a part of that whole Shrapnel legacy of guitar players.
Now you've released two records like that. Was there any plans on releasing a third, or is that something that feel good with what you've accomplished already with the first two?
Yeah, I mean, you never know what might happen in the future, but I'm psyched doing Dark Chapel and now singing and going in that direction.
Mm. Yeah, I mean the Dark Chapel stuff, like I said earlier, is really incredible, and I would really like to see this band grow. It's just that sometimes when artists have like a another project besides their main thing, it sometimes it suffers and it doesn't get it isn't the priority like it should be. But I mean, Black Label Society is one of the biggest bands out right now, so I mean that's got to be the priority, right?
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, work as hard as you can on both.
Do you think you could pull off a double gig if like Dark Chapel opened up for Black Label Society? Do you think you could play with both bands in the same night?
That'd be amazing. Yeah, I could definitely do that.
As far as Black Label Society goes, what are the tour plans for this year? Are there anything set, or is that going to be a priority this year in 2025?
I know we have a show coming up in May at the Milwaukee Metal Fest. So that's going to be killer. And that's Jamie Joss's festival. And we have next year we'll be back at it.
So 2026.
Yep.
Okay, so this year's kind of going to be a little break from that, so you could really concentrate on Dark Chapel in 2025.
Yep.
Oh, that's great. Okay, great news. What were some of your influences, and what were your like five favorite records growing up?
So I mean, my family was musical. My dad was into heavy music. So like Van Halen, when I first heard that as a kid, like driving around with my dad and pulling tapes out of the glove box and putting whatever I found into the tape player, that was like when I heard that, it sounded magical. It's like, how can I make my guitar? How can I sound like that playing guitar? So Van Halen 1 was like, that's my tip top. But I loved Metallica and Alice in Chains, Queensryche, a lot of that stuff at that time. But I love all style of music. I mean, you know, I had mixed CDs with, Dream Theater and Papa Roach and Sum 41 and whatever was happening at that time when I was a kid that I loved. So I mean, go way back to like early jazz, the Beatles and everything, So I love all styles of music.
Oh, so do you have a definite top five that you could announce to us, reveal
I
to
don't,
us?
I don't know if I can have a top five album. I know Van Halen 1 would be my top number one, just as far as guitar playing and inspiration. That was like, injected a lot of life when I was first starting. Um, the Black Album was big for me because that's like something I was listening to when I was taking guitar lessons as a kid, like on the way to take guitar lessons. The Black Album was out, and that's like what I was really into at the time. Um, and then whatever was getting played on like WAAF in Boston, because I'm from Boston, and that radio station always had killer rock music playing. So whatever was on there at the time was heavily inspirational. But Van Halen 1 and the Black Album, I could say, are my first two.
I want to go back to working with Zakk Wylde. And what are some of the things that you learned from Zakk as far as like, being a leader of the band that you apply now as the leader of Dark Chapel?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, rolling with him for the past 11 years has been definitely inspiring. You probably absorb a lot more, than you really think, just subconsciously. But I mean, his work ethic is amazing. So that's probably number one. And yeah, I mean, I'd say work ethic.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, he definitely does have that. I mean, he's always out there with, either Black Label Society, Ozzy in the past, Pantera now, Zach Sabbath. It's incredible. The guy's like always doing something.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dario, I want to thank you very much for your time. I'm hoping that Dark Chapel comes to, Buffalo, New York, my part of town, home of the future Super Bowl champions. God, I hope I'm not jinxing it, but
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
pretty good about that. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get you guys over here sometime soon. And thanks again for the interview, and best of luck. This is some really great music that you put together.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And thank you again for having me.
You're welcome. All right. You take it easy, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, man. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.